All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Donadio. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Association of Counties, and I want to welcome you to our Wednesday morning virtual workshop on the third round of opioid settlements. And we have a terrific workshop for you today. Before I introduce our speakers, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping things. If you have a question, throughout this workshop, please put it in the Q&A, and we will do our best to answer it as you ask the question. If you have any after the fact, please send them to me, and I will make sure to reach out to Brian and Lara, and they will get back to you. We'll get back to you accordingly. This, provided it's okay with Lara, this workshop will be available on our website, and we will make sure to provide you with the PowerPoint presentation too. That's okay too, right, Lara? I think that would be
Absolutely.
really, really helpful for all of our folks, and we'll have some other information for you as we make our way, through the presentation. And then also want to take a minute to thank Natalie, who is helping us today to make sure all the IT goes correctly. Because I say this all the time, if I would have done it, I would have hung up on all of you, and it would be just me and Lara and Brian on this video presentation. So thank you, Natalie, for your help. So with that, we have a really important workshop in store for you today, as the deadline to sign up onto two settlement agreements is fast approaching. The first one is September 30th, so that's right around the corner, less than 2 short weeks from here, from today. So we're very pleased to have with us, and she does a marvelous job. Did the first time with the first settlement, did a great job in making sure all 21 counties and all eligible. I think it was 262, and she'll correct me throughout the presentation. Other eligible subdivisions signed on to the first round of settlement agreements to make sure that New Jersey received its full share of the opioid settlement monies, and we're looking to do the same thing right now. We're very lucky to have someone who is a dedicated public servant committed to this issue, and Lara here, making sure that, again, New Jersey gets its full fair share of the settlement agreement. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Lara Fogel, who is an Assistant Attorney General with the New Jersey State's Attorney General Office in charge of opioid litigation. So Lara, I'm going to turn it off to you to introduce Brian as well. Brian, I'm sorry I didn't have your official title here today, so Lara can introduce you. But thank you both for being
Sure.
here. We appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks, John. Thank you so much for having us. And I'll just introduce my colleague. He is Brian DeVito, Deputy Attorney General Brian DeVito. And I am Lara Fogel. I am an Assistant Attorney General in charge of opioid litigation and recovery, and also affirmative civil enforcement at the New Jersey Attorney General's office. I'd like to thank you all for being here today. And to John, thank you so much for setting this up. So I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation that I hope will be helpful for today's webinar. It's about opioid settlements, not just with the Sackler family, but also with what we're calling the secondary manufacturers. So Brian, if you'd like to please put up the PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. And if we could please move to slide 2. Okay, so before we get started, just a quick disclaimer that everything that I'm saying here today, it's for general information purposes, should not be considered advice, recommendations, and offer to perform services. No one should act or refrain from acting upon anything I say today without seeking professional legal counsel. Only your individual attorney can provide assurances as to your particular situation. No representations are being made as to the completeness of this information, and nothing I say here today is intended to create an attorney-client relationship and or be construed as legal advice. Next slide. Okay, so let's get started. Before we get started, I did just want to take a minute to situate you all in terms of where things stand in the opioid settlement world. And John did allude to this earlier. What we call Wave 1 were our nationwide opioid settlements with Johnson & Johnson, along with the country's 3 largest pharmaceutical distributors, McKesson, Cardinal Health, and AmeriSourceBergen. And those Wave 1 opioid settlements brought in and continue to bring in $26 billion nationwide and about $641 million for New Jersey. After Wave 1, we then had Wave 2, which were our nationwide opioid settlements with 3 pharmacy chains, with CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart, and with 2 drug makers, Teva and Allergan. And those brought in and continue to bring in about $20 billion nationwide and about $508 million for New Jersey. So just from Wave 1 and Wave 2 opioid settlement, New Jersey is expected to receive over $1 billion in opioid settlement payments to help abate the opioid epidemic in New Jersey. And we're now in what we are calling Wave 3, which are nationwide settlements with 8 smaller opioid drug makers, expected to bring in about $720 million nationwide and just under $20 million for New Jersey. And the purpose of today's presentation is to provide an overview of these 8 new opioid settlements with 8 secondary manufacturers, as well as the direct settlement with the Sacklers. And I'm speaking here today to strongly encourage all 262 eligible New Jersey subdivisions to sign on to all 9 opioid settlements. And as with prior opioid settlements, there was a state sign-on period and there was a subdivision sign-on period. The state sign-on period is done. New Jersey has signed on to all 9 opioid settlement agreements, and we're now in the subdivision sign-on period. And as with prior opioid settlements, the more eligible subdivisions sign on, the more monies will come into New Jersey to abate the opioid epidemic. And as John mentioned, the deadline to sign on to the Purdue Sackler direct settlement is September 30th. It's 17 days from now. It's a very strict deadline because it's tied to the Purdue bankruptcy. And so we don't anticipate there'll be any movement or extensions on that front. So we need all 262 subdivisions to sign on by then, within 13 days, to maximize the abatement monies for New Jersey. The deadline to sign on to the 8 secondary manufacturer settlements is slightly later. It's on October 8th, but not much later. So our goal is to try to get all 262 eligible subdivisions to sign on to both the Sackler settlement and the 8 secondary manufacturer settlement at the same time. Next slide. Oh, same slide. Okay. So there are a total of 9 opioid settlement agreements, as I said before. The first is a single settlement agreement with members of the Sackler family. They founded Purdue Pharma, and that agreement is called the Governmental Entity and Shareholder Direct Settlement, or what we call the GISA. The other 8 settlements are with 8 smaller secondary manufacturers. That's Alvogen, Amneal, Apotex, Hikma, Indivior, Mylan, Sun Pharmaceuticals, and Zydus. Next slide. Okay, so just speaking about payment terms, let's discuss overall nationwide numbers, and then we can talk about New Jersey numbers. So nationally, the payout from Purdue and the Sacklers is up to $7.4 billion, with up to $6.5 billion coming from the Sacklers in 16 payments over 15 years. And then there'll also be approximately $900 million from Purdue on emergence from bankruptcy. And then nationally, the payout from the secondary manufacturers is up to approximately $719 million over up to 10 years. So there are 8 different settlements. There are 8 separate settlements. They each have different payment terms or payout years. Some are paid in one payment. Some are paid in multiple payments. Some can be paid in a few years. The longest payout period is 10 years. So for New Jersey, the state and its eligible subdivisions, they can receive up to approximately $125.5 million from Purdue and the Sacklers, and up to approximately $19.8 million from the secondary manufacturers. So we're talking about a total of up to approximately $145.3 million for New Jersey from all 9 settlements. So I just want you to look at this chart. It actually spans 2 slides because it's so many payments. This is the estimated distribution chart from Purdue Sacklers. It's the New Jersey monies. This chart can be found on nationalopioidsettlement.com. It's a great website to write down, and it's got a ton of information that you might need about the wave 1, wave 2, or wave 3 opioid settlements. Again, nationalopioidsettlement.com. Under Purdue Sacklers, you'll see this estimated distribution chart. It shows that, Brian, if you can just go to the second slide for a second. Okay, so you see how their payment date, there are 16 payments, like I said, from Purdue and the Sacklers. If you look at the total for New Jersey, we're talking about 100 up to $125.46 million over 16 payments. Brian, if you could please go to the prior slide. Okay, I just want to spend a second and explain this chart a little bit just to situate you all. You'll see in the first column under payment type, there are estate payments, there are base payments, there are incentive payments, and then there's a state total for each payment 1 through 16. So the estate payments, so if you look at payment date 1, that $9 million number is the money that will come from Purdue, the entity that is currently in bankruptcy. Please note that that number is our best estimated number at this point. That number could go up or down quite a lot, depending on variables that are out of our control at this point. To the extent that there are litigation or administrative costs, that number could go down. To the extent that there are additional recoveries from insurance litigation, from third-party litigation, from Purdue's successor company, NewCo, that number could go up. So that's the best number that we have at this time, but please note that that number is variable. The base number is the amount of money that goes that comes from the Sacklers, and it's as a result of the state signing on. So by virtue of New Jersey signing on for payment 1, there's $4.677 million. Then there are incentive payments, and that's where subdivision sign-on is so important. We are aiming for the maximum incentive payment. That requires all 262 eligible subdivisions to sign on. If they do, for payment date 1, we would get $6.159 million from the Sacklers to bring us to a total of $19.9 million for payment number 1, and so on. And so you can take a look at this chart on the nationalopioidsettlement.com website, and it should give you a good sense of how the payments will be made out over time. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in addition to payment terms, the settlements also include injunctive relief for the Sacklers, for Purdue, and the 8 secondary manufacturer defendants also. So for example, for the Sacklers, among other things, they can't participate in the domestic opioid business. They have to make commercially reasonable efforts to sell their international opioid manufacturing companies, or what we call their IACs. And they have to allow for the removal of the Sackler name from buildings, from facilities, from scholarships, from endowments, and they have to refrain from seeking Sackler naming rights. Next slide. Purdue also has injunctive terms. NewCo, which I mentioned before, is Purdue's successor company. It has to comply with Purdue's existing ban on opioid promotion. Notably, NewCo has to create an online document repository. It will consist of over 30 million documents, and that's going to be available to the public to view, to learn about the unlawful conduct that took place on the part of Purdue and the Sacklers. Next slide. There are also injunctive relief terms for the secondary manufacturers. For example, they can't promote opioids. They can't manufacture opioid products with more than 40 milligrams of oxycodone. They also have to create a system for detecting and documenting and reporting any suspicious opioid ordering. I'll just note that Indivior is slightly differently situated from the other 7 secondary manufacturers, only because Indivior manufactures products to treat opioid use disorder, so it has less stringent injunctive terms. Next slide. Okay, so this is just a slide to show the state sign-on process. On June 16th, 2025, AG Plotkin announced that New Jersey signed on to the direct settlement with the Sacklers. And then on July 10th, AG Plotkin announced that New Jersey signed on to the 8 nationwide settlements with the 8 secondary manufacturers. So as I said before, the state has signed on to all 9 opioid settlements, and we now need all 262 eligible New Jersey subdivisions to sign on to all 9 opioid settlements to maximize abatement dollars for New Jersey. Next slide. So before we get into the sign-on mechanics, I just wanted to note that these 9 opioid settlements, as well as the funds from the Purdue bankruptcy, they're all governed by the Memorandum of Agreement between the state of New Jersey and local governments on opioid litigation, which we refer to as the State Subdivision Agreement. Next slide. And pursuant to the state subdivision agreement, all opioid funds or abatement funds, they are going to be divided 50-50 between the state and the eligible subdivisions. So there's a state share and a local government share. Next slide. In terms of how to split up the local government share, you'll see over here, this is Exhibit G to the distributor agreement. They're similar, that's the same Exhibit G to, or akin to Exhibit G to the Sackler direct settlement and the 8 secondary manufacturer settlements. Essentially, you'll see here that's NJ1, NJ2, it goes NJ1 through NJ262. The way that a subdivision ends up on this Exhibit G is if it litigated against the distributors and or Janssen, or it has a population over 10,000. So if your subdivision has a population under 10,000 and did not litigate against the distributors and or Janssen, your subdivision will not be on Exhibit G. Only those subdivisions on Exhibit G will be eligible for direct opioid settlement payments. The way it works is, for example, if you look at NJ1, that's Aberdeen Township, it would be entitled to 0.0797% of the local government share of each opioid settlement agreement that's governed by the state subdivision agreement. Next slide. So let's speak a little bit about some restrictions on the opioid settlement funds. Under the state subdivision agreement, opioid funds have to be used for approved purposes, and those approved purposes, at least guidelines for those, are set forth in Exhibit E to the distributor and Janssen settlement agreement. Next slide. So Exhibit E, it has a Schedule A, which lists core abatement strategies, and those are sort of the most preferred ways to use the opioid settlement funds. Next slide. But then Exhibit E also has a Schedule B, which has a ton of different approved uses in different categories like treatment, prevention, other strategies, and the like. These are including but not limited to approved uses. So if something fits into one of these categories or akin to those, they're intended to be extremely broad to allow for lots of different approved opioid abatement uses. Next slide. The state subdivision agreement does have a supplement, not supplant requirement that opioid funds shall be used to supplement and shall not supplant federal, state, county, or municipal funds. And also, opioid funds may not be used to reimburse the state or any county or municipality for past expenditures. Next slide. There's also an annual reporting requirement that essentially each subdivision that receives opioid settlement funds has to report to the state about how much it received each year and how it spent its funds that particular year. Next slide. This is a particularly important slide that I want to flag. The subdivision agreement, it does permit eligible New Jersey subdivisions to sign on to opioid settlements and then have their share of the proceeds voluntarily redistributed. Subdivisions might be interested in this option to avoid being subject to various reporting requirements that I just discussed. And so upon any subdivision's election to voluntarily redistribute their share, it would go to the county in which it resides. And a subdivision can opt for this voluntary redistribution option at any time and can do so on an opioid settlement by opioid settlement basis. So, for example, subdivisions that are receiving opioid settlements from wave 1 and wave 2 might decide, oh, we want to voluntarily redistribute just the proceeds from the 8 secondary manufacturers to the county in which we reside. It doesn't have to be across the board. It could be per opioid settlement. And it's super important to know about this. Like I said, we need all 262 eligible subdivisions to sign on to all 9 opioid settlements. But if for whatever reason a subdivision doesn't want its share of these 9 opioid settlements, please sign on, and then it can always voluntarily redistribute its share to the county in which it resides. Next slide. So this is returning to the sign-on mechanics. Rubris is the implementation administrator for all 9 settlements. You should have received 2 separate sign-on packages from Rubris for these settlements. And as John mentioned and I mentioned earlier, the sign-on deadline for the Purdue Sackler settlement is September 30th and October 8th for the 8 secondary manufacturer settlements. There on the slide, you'll see it's very small, but you'll see the nationalopioidsettlement.com website that I mentioned before. Super helpful in terms of tons of information. The preferred sign-on method is through DocuSign using an e-signature. The next preferred sign-on method is through DocuSign using a manual signature. The least preferred, but still an option for sign-on, is by email. You can email opioidsparticipation@rubris.com with a manual signature. But sign-on to all 9 settlements can be done through the DocuSign platform. Next slide. Okay, so like I said, you should have received 2 emails from Rubris from a DocuSign.net email address. One will be from the Sackler settlement, and one will be for the secondary manufacturer settlement. And if you go in, you can see that there's this, it should look like what you see on the screen, and then you click into that yellow box, review documents, and you should be able to follow the instructions from there to execute the participation forms. Note that there is 1 email and 1 participation form for the Purdue Sackler settlement, and then there is 1 email and 1 combined participation form for all 8 secondary manufacturers. So you don't have to sign on 8 different times. You can just sign on once to all 8 opioid settlements and sign on once to the Purdue Sackler direct settlement. So it's essentially 2 participation forms that you need to sign on to sign on to all 9 opioid settlements. Next slide. If you have any questions about the subdivision sign-on process, please feel free to email Rubris, who's taking care of the sign-on process, at opioidsparticipation@rubris.com. Our office, we have also set up an opioids inbox that our team monitors. So if you have any questions for us, please feel free to reach out to us at opioid settlements at njoag.gov. If you have any questions about initiatives that you'd like to take with these opioid settlement funds, please feel free to reach out to New Jersey's Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services. That's at dmhas@dhs.nj.gov. And I just want to mention one more thing before we close. Our team at the New Jersey Attorney General's office has been reaching out to the 262 eligible subdivisions to make sure that they sign on to these 9 opioid settlements and try to facilitate the sign-on process. Our team has around 40 or 50 subdivisions for whom we have contact information, and we haven't been getting bounce backs. So someone seems to be receiving the emails that we're sending, but we have gotten no response despite our outreach. And those correspond with the subdivisions that have yet to sign on to these 9 opioid settlements. There's also a few others that need to sign on, but we're in contact with them. So after this presentation, John Donadio has said that he can email out the spreadsheet that we have for those subdivisions for whom we haven't heard from at all. If your subdivision is there, please feel free to reach out to John or to us at the Opioid Settlements at NJOAG.gov, and we'll, please put us in touch with the right person who can sign on, and we will get your subdivision the right sign-on forms. So again, thank you for your time. We so appreciate it. And we very much encourage everybody to sign on so that we can maximize abatement dollars for New Jersey. Thank you.
Muted now. I'm unmuted. Okay. Thank you, Lara and Brian. I appreciate it a great deal, and really all of your hard work that you've put into this. It's really, I appreciate it a great deal. And I don't see any questions, but I have a question if you don't mind.
Sure.
If all the subdivisions do not sign on, what happens? Like, what happens with the monies?
Right. So there's a certain maximum amount, and we will not be able to achieve that maximum amount. And then there's some type of sliding scale that you get less money depending on how many subdivisions fail to sign on. So, we have to look at that sliding scale, but essentially New Jersey would get less money.
Okay. And will the criteria for this round of settlement monies in terms of what a county or a eligible subdivision can use the monies for, will it be the same or it will be different?
It will be exactly the same.
Okay.
So again, refer to Exhibit E of the distributor agreement that puts forth a ton of approved opioid uses, and hopefully they'll be, they have to be used for those opioid remediation uses, just like they have for prior opioid settlements.
Right. And then one more question. I've had a couple of individuals ask me, well, what is, my county, or, for the towns that we work with, what is my municipality? What do they stand to receive? And there's a percentage of the overall settlement agreement that they could receive. It's just an estimate, but they could kind of extrapolate that information.
Yeah, I think we have to make sure we get all 262 eligible subdivisions to sign on. We also, like I said before, we don't know 100% what those Purdue numbers are going to be. Those could vary quite a lot depending on what happens with Purdue in the bankruptcy and post-emergence. So there's variability there. But essentially, these up to 145 million should be split 50-50, ish around all the abatement monies between the state and the subdivisions. And then you can look at your percentage. Once everything is set and, set, then Brown Greer will hopefully be able to set out sort of the chart like it's done for the prior opioid settlements in terms of how much each subdivision should receive, but we're just not up to that yet.
Great. Thank you, Lara. I do have a question from Mr. Jerry Del Rosso, the Atlantic County Administrator. Is there any information on the Sandoz settlement?
On the what settlement?
Sandoz. Sandoz?
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of the Sandoz settlement.
Well, we'll make sure to sue them, Jerry.
Okay.
So
That's not something I work on. Maybe someone else in my office does, but I'm not aware of it.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. We'll get back to you on that. I don't see any other questions. So again, we'll make sure to share with you this PowerPoint presentation. We'll make sure to share with you the video recording and the list of counties and municipalities that have not signed on to both settlement agreements. It's critical, that we sign on to both. Lara went through the deadlines. They're fast approaching, and it's important that we have 100% compliance with that. So thank you again, Lara and Brian, for all your hard work on this and for taking the time to be here today. And this was the best video workshop ever. We were done in 30 minutes. That was awesome.
Amazing.
And very informative and comprehensive. So I appreciate it. Thank you, and we'll keep working on this.
All right. Thank you all.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.